And we're back with Light from the Leshem, authentic Kabbalah teachings from the Torah on topics concerning the divine workings of our reality, from essays of the writings of Rav Shlomo Eliashiv, the Baal Leshem, of blessed memory. This is under the auspices and guidance of Rabbi Yoshua Gerzi, the rabbi of the Beit Midrash, Beit David Pilsno of Beit Shemesh. Today we're still on the topic of why did God decide to create reality, and today's topic is to bestow goodness upon creation. And now we will begin. Article 6 from the Book of Knowledge. Bestowing goodness upon the creation. Introduction. This article is from a series of articles that explain why God decided to create all of existence, comprehending the Creator's intended purpose and awaited outcome for designing, and implementing all of existence, not surprisingly, has many aspects. This article will discuss the purpose of creation from the aspect that God's intention for creating all creation is in order to bestow goodness upon us. This is an issue that is pretty commonly discussed in many other places, but we're going to get a particular way the Leshem explains it and understand the deeper aspect of this idea, that God created all of creation in order to bestow goodness upon us. So we begin. Humankind has a central influence upon the rectification of the world. The emanator, again, emanator is a term which is matzil in Hebrew, which is because God emanates everything. That's like a higher word for creation. Everything comes out of him. So creation is like created, but emanation is like another similar term. So the emanator, may be blessed, arranged the rectification of the world so that humankind would have central influence upon it. He set it up that way. For humankind is the final purpose of all creation, and therefore humankind includes within it, from the initial roots of reality up to the summation of all phenomena. Everything that they do contains the potential power of everything in it. Everything we do has potential for everything in it. Thus, through performing acts of goodness, they, meaning human beings, can rectify and bring goodness to all. When acting in an evil manner, they can also ruin everything. That's the unfortunate other side of it. Now we're going to discuss the necessity for the existence of evil. Everything you wanted to know about evil, but were afraid to ask. Yet, the actual distinction for goodness is only due to the existence of evil. For goodness can only be recognized in contradistinction to evil. As it is written in the Book of Formation, which is called the Sefer Yetzirah in Hebrew, for those who've heard of it, says, the good defines the evil, and the evil defines the good. This is also discussed at length in a book called The Midrash of Change, which wasn't able to discern where that's from. If anybody knows and can let us know, it's called Midrash Tmurah in Hebrew. Okay, thus all enjoyment and pleasure received from all joyous splendor and goodness only comes because there is a lacking that exists in the receiver of this pleasure. How can you get joy and pleasure unless there's a lack of it and then you get it, right? If you're in a state of pleasure all the time, it's not clear that you're experiencing anything different. So for this reason, it becomes a necessity to implement the reality of evilness. For without evil, the splendorous elation from goodness could not be experienced. Similarly, it too becomes necessary to grant the potential for humankind to ruin everything. But so if you allow for evil, that means there has to be a potential that humankind can also ruin everything, so that the joy and pleasure of rectifying the world could become apparent and perceivable to them. Any questions up till here?
No, it's understood. Thank you.
Great. It's a pretty common concept, but now we're going to get into a very interesting point that he expands on, that he touched on in one of the other classes, which is what this pleasure and oneness is about. Human beings desire to acquire and possess their own boundless pleasure and reward via their own actions. People want to attain, they were built with this desire to accomplish. Furthermore, the essence of obtaining this pleasure and joy from splendor and goodness is only when it is earned and belongs to a given person and not to someone else. as it is written in the Gemara, where exactly Baba Metzia Lamed Chet Aleph, if somebody wants to look that up. It says like this: a person prefers a cob of his own to having 9 cobs that belong to his fellow. And a cob is a measurement of something. A person would rather have one that something, a little bit of something that is own, than a lot of that belongs to someone else. People like to feel they're their own mensch, as they say. Therefore, when a person causes the essence of the reality of goodness to be enabled as the result of his influence and actions, this itself is the boundless pleasure and pleasantness that is received from the splendor of goodness. And that's the schar mitzvah thing, or the reward of a mitzvah is a mitzvah, where you actually feel when you do something good, you actually feel that you've brought more goodness into the world. So, and now this is a side, kiviyachol, a side point that we will see will add, enhance the dimension of this greatly. So this is the point. All separate beings are actually in a state of oneness. So this he actually writes as an aside in the text itself, and in the text I translated, I put it in brackets. But it's a very, very important issue. It's worth it just to hear this point from all of his essays. It really helps understand a lot about the psychology of human nature. All this is possible, meaning being able to rectify the world through doing goodness, because of the root of oneness, which is found within everyone. Everybody has a root place in them where they sense the state of oneness. For everyone is supported and remains in existence only due to this inner oneness. Because we're created by God, this little piece of that, echoing of that, is what causes us to exist and remain in existence. So therefore, we all have that little place in us somewhere. This oneness is the root, the most inner aspect of everything, and upholds and maintains everything. The root, the source, the shot of the word root, the simple meaning of the word root, the core. For this reason, every person is drawn only towards himself and what is his. And that's why we are concerned. That's the source of ego too, of what we want, why we want our stuff, and why we're concerned about our own person. He himself, with his spiritual and physical belongings and achievements, and those who are connected with him, his family, etc., are more precious to him than anything else. And there's even an issue, like even with giving tzedakah, with giving charity, say the poor people of your city come before the poor people of another city because they're your poor people. Like everybody is concerned with their immediate surroundings. And it's not just by accident. For he is at one with what belongs or is connected to him, and his desire is only for that which is special to him. This is because he himself and what he owns or is connected to him are essential for him. Sort of stating the obvious at this point, but you see where he goes with this. And a person is connected to his wife, his family, his house, his neighborhood. And why is this? In truth, all separate beings are actually in a state of oneness at their root. But really, we're all connected to a state of oneness at our root. For everyone is ultimately created, upheld, and maintained by the Creator. Separate beings only seem to be in separation. The separation is somewhat of an illusion of the way reality is set up, because of the cloaking and barriers from physicality and density that is caused by the primal transgression of Adam. So Adam and Rishon, we can't get into this here, but the primal transgression of Adam, it means the eating of the fruit of the tree. But it's much more. It has much more implications than just someone taking a bite of an apple, obviously. But because of that, there is a cloaking and barriers of physicality and density that came as a result of that. But in their inner dimension, beyond which, right from the prior to the transgression of Adam Rishon, all separate beings are actually eternally in unity. They're in a state of unity for eternity. But even at this present time, the more we acknowledge this unity, the experience of this oneness becomes greater within us. So the more we're aware of this point, first of all, this is the first time you're aware of this point, so become aware of it. And secondly, The more you're aware of it, the more you focus on knowing that this is the actual real truth, the more it becomes greater within our awareness. So this explains, and this is the point, this is the takeaway point for this. This explains why a person has a constant longing for what he owns. What he really desires is actually to be in unity within himself, which is for when he is experiencing oneness within himself, he can somewhat connect to the experience of true oneness even at the present time. So basically, this what seems to be an egoistic thing where a person wants to have a house and a wife and a family and be in a nice neighborhood and all that kind of stuff is really driven by the fact that he wants to feel the biggest state of oneness and wants to be in unity with as much as he can. He can't be in unity with everything that is in existence, but he can be in unity with his own environment. But that's being driven by the fact that he really has a desire to be connected to the unity of everything. Any questions up till here?
Yeah. So are we saying that, is the Leshem saying that the whole, meaning there's the underlying pursuit of, man, or of someone within it, within this existence, is always coming from an underlying, I guess, subconscious or, meta reality within himself that wants to return to its conscious state of unity. So in whatever
Yes,
way,
exactly.
so would one say that the time that becomes, let's say, in a fallen state, is when he, so to speak, steps on or ignores or mistreats certain scenarios in order to get meaning, like the difference. What comes up for me when I hear that is that, so the difference, like you actually said earlier, you touched upon the difference between like an evil person and a righteous person, is that not that one is coming from necessarily a place of evil, at least but that they're both looking for that same point of unification. One just gets there through evil means, or is that not necessarily the case?
That what you're asking is bringing into other factors than what he's discussing here. But let's try to answer that. It's like this. What he's saying here is that a person's desire is really ultimately to return to unity, and the way to do that is to be aware of that and to try to get there through doing Torah mitzvot, but also by being connected to your stuff and your things is coming from that drive to be in some sort of unification. So then a person who's doing it, so to say, the wrong way, which we call evil, is that he's desiring to achieve that, but doing it in a way that harms other people in the universe rather than builds it. So that would be like he wants to have more stuff to feel like he's connected more, but if he takes it from someone else in an illegal way, it's called stealing, and stealing's obviously wrong. That's like a classic example of that. Like you shouldn't yearn to unify with something from someone else that doesn't belong to you. But to be happy with what you have is definitely something good. So, and another aspect that he's not talking about that here too is samech b'chelko, being happy with what you have. But that's not the main issue here.
Amazing. I guess
Okay.
so. What comes up is that, so someone like, I don't know if this is in the scope of the class. If it isn't, then never mind.
Okay.
But so like what comes up is, let's say someone in history that we have defined 100% as evil. So like, let's say the big P, let's say Paro, right? So would we say, since he was like the essence of evil, that his inner mechanism was not looking for unity, or
No,
but it was just evil in its own way, and that's a different breed? Or do we say that he also wanted to, so to speak, achieve that unity, yet it was through the absolute, means and medium of like total wrong and evil?
yeah, I think I would tend to say like the second way you said. Like it's something that needs to be discussed and look at the sources and see what commentaries say to be more definitive about it. But in general, yeah, that's the direction the Leshem is saying, that people are longing for unity, and if they go to unity in the wrong way, that's basically evil. And because Pharaoh was considered to be evil, so then apparently that's what he was doing. So, or I think there's an old country song that said, "Looking for love in all the wrong places."
That's perfect. Yep.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, in that way, you can understand the comprehensiveness of the creation, right? And it means understanding the aspect of evil is actually. Add one more thing that Rav Harlap talks about. It's connected to this. It's not directly, but he says, for example, that a Jew who is trying to is not doing something correctly, what he's actually doing is that he is doing an Avirah Lishma, which means he's doing a transgression for its own sake. In other words, if he knew or understood, he's trying to get to the source and to truth and to goodness, but he's doing it the wrong way because of a misunderstanding. But he's still motivated the same way as someone who's righteous, who's doing it in a proper way.
Wow, very cool. Thank you.
Okay, so now connecting it back to our main, that was like a side issue, but now this is going to open up the main topic and give us a new dimension to understanding it. Continuing on, every human act of rectification draws out delight and serenity from the entirety of the creation. So in any event, when a person through his strength and actions creates goodness in reality, this itself becomes the essence of joy, delight, and pleasantness and splendor. For the Emanator, blessed be he, formed all humans with the capacity to perform actions. Understanding that to mean divine commandments, basically. We all have the capacity to do so, and that affect all of reality. When we do these actions of mitzvot, we affect all of reality, as all human beings are comprised of all the worlds. For when human beings themselves act in increased goodness, they enable and make possible all the rectifications in all the worlds. It has a ripple effect on all of creation. Therefore, the immeasurable goodness in both quality and quantity of the future, which will be full of delight and serenity, can only come into being through this human assistance. Since the humans are connected and unified with all of the worlds, every act of assistance draws out delight and serenity from the entirety of creation, from its beginning roots to the end of time, immeasurably increasing its quality and quantity. There's a constant rectification going on by our actions that is affecting all the worlds from the beginning of time to the end of time. Quite astounding, huh?
Wow.
Okay, continuing on. So the core essence of rectification and the source of the highest benefit is his holy light. And now we get to the main thesis of this article, which is this. The core essence of rectification and the source of the highest benefit is what opens the source and the divine flow from the Ein Sof. May be blessed, that reveals his light and holiness both above and below in flames of compassion to all existence. This is the delight, serenity, Eden, and pleasure of all future goodness that has been hidden away for the righteous. In other words, he's describing what the reward, in more simpler terms, we say, you do something good, you get a reward. So what's this reward? In essence, the core essence of it is there's a rectification and the opening up of the source of the highest benefit, which is the experiencing the divine flow from the Creator. What will be revealed in his light and holiness, both above and below, in flashes of fire, in the flames of God, in the flashes of compassion, from the light of supernal knowing. This is stuff that's a bit hard to translate because it's basically very poetic. He's just poetically describing the highest level of light. So the light of supernal knowing is a term in Hebrew, or the dot ilah, the light from the supernal dot, right? So this term refers to the highest ultimate spiritual light in creation. In other words, you experience the highest light from the highest source. All of reality will unite in this and receive delight from the splendor of his light and his divine presence. For in them is all the hidden goodness of all of reality. All the unfolding, the particular processes within the redemption process themselves are only there to enable the reality of the revelation of this light of supernal knowing, as it's called, in all its particulars. And then he goes and he explains that these particulars are three different things that I translated here that sound kind of bizarre in Hebrew, in English, and they refer to terminology that are found in Tehillim and in Psalms. And in other places, he describes what these processes are. And here, it's beyond the scope of this discussion to talk about them. But just to mention them, one is called the Leviathan, the Leviathan in English. One's called the bird of the field, which is Tzitz. What is it? No, I didn't write it here. Tzitz Sadeh, something like that. And then there's the beasts of the thousand hills. And in another place, and hopefully we'll get to it, we'll translate that as well. He explains how these things are symbolic of messianic processes that happened during the time of the full unfolding of the messianic era. May it be soon. So they are all only the details of the revelation of this light of supernal knowing. So all this stuff that's discussed in the Kabbalah is basically discussing how the highest light eventually opens up and becomes part of our own reality, as it was at the beginning of all worlds, as we mentioned above, as it was in the beginning of time. So this is the foundation of he created all for his honor and glory. He created everything for his honor and glory. This is a revelation of his holy light that he reveals his honor and kingship to all existence. The honor and glory of God will be revealed to all flesh. This itself is the pleasure of all pleasure, the Eden of all Edens. There is none higher than this, for smaller pleasures are only partial particulars that come from this ultimate pleasure. Understand this well. So this is the reward. The reward is experiencing the joy of receiving God's light. And so in final conclusion, he makes one more short point about this, which is pretty cool in my feeling, which is like this. The intention that God had for creating all creation is to bestow goodness upon his creations. And now we get to the main theme. So that's why he did it. Many great holy books state the following concept. The intention that God had for creating all creation is in order to bestow goodness upon his creations. As it is written in Proverbs, all God acts are done for his own sake, which is lemanehu in Hebrew, which is sort of a very, it's not clear how to translate that. So as he explains here, he says, look, it's also possible to translate this passage to mean for the sake of humankind. He created all of creation for his own sake, or he created for humankind. That's how Targum Yonatan translates it. And also Maimonides wrote that this passage may also be understood to mean for the sake of humankind. But according to the rabbis of the Talmud, Chazal, it means for the sake of him, for his own sake. Now he's going to say something pretty cool about this. He's going to now put these 2 points together. Thus he established that everything has been created for his honor and glory. And in actuality, the truth is that all these issues are all one in the same matter. It's really the same thing. For the revelation of the glory of Hashem is itself the pleasure of all pleasures, and the end results of all benefits, and the end goal of all. As it is stated in the words of the prophets and the rabbis, in the perfected future, the entire reality of the world will come out from and will be established from the facets of his revelations, for they are all one in existence. understand this well. In other words, for the sake of humankind, receiving the benefit of God's light and for doing it for his own sake are basically the same point. And that's it for today. If you have any questions, otherwise we'll call it a class for today.
No, thank you very much. It's really profound.
Okay, great. So now I just got to figure out how to turn off the whatever this is, and we'll call it a day.